Welcome to the Music for the Soul podcast, where we talk honestly about difficult things. This is a place where music, hope, and healing come together. I'm Becky Nordquist.
And I'm Steve Siler.
Well, welcome, Steve Siler, because we're going to be talking to you today about a couple of things.
Well, thank you. Yes, I feel very welcomed. Thank you.
Well, it's always fun because I always learn new stuff about Music for the Soul whenever we have these conversations that I didn't know before about our products and the things that we have that will encourage and inspire and offer hope and healing to people. So I have been looking forward to this conversation because we are going to talk about two very special projects. And I know they are special to you, but there's some songs on here on these projects that are very special to me too. So welcome. And I'm glad that we get to have this conversation today and invite our listeners to glean in and pull back the curtain, give them a peek.
Well, I'm pleased to do it. Thank you.
These are two projects that you are the vocalist and artist on, yeah?
That would be correct. Yes.
So why did you decide to do them? I'm just going to jump right in and go for the gusto. Why did you decide to do these?
First of all, let me just say I never aspired to be a recording artist as part of the Music for the Soul catalog. That was not why Music for the Soul was founded. I always say that Music for the Soul is about the listener. Mm-hmm. I've actually said and felt throughout the years that with Music for the Soul, the listener is the artist because it's about each individual who's listening, their story, and how what we share resonates with them. So I never wanted to be, celebrity driven or artist driven for that reason. And so I had resisted recording any things myself because when you have people like Larnell Harris and Scott Payne and Clay Cross and John Mandeville and friends like that, you really can just stay out of the vocal lane and things go pretty well. But after several years of doing the ministry and doing these issue-focused projects, I came to feel like we had several songs that just hadn't gotten their moment in the sun because they didn't fit any of these specific topics that we had worked on. And I was expressing that to one of my board members, and he said, well, Steve, why don't you just go ahead and record those? I was like, oh, no, I'm not a recording artist. I don't want to do that. I'm really not. I don't feel like I'm, capable of doing that. And he said, don't worry about your voice. Just share your heart. Just tell your stories and share your heart. And that may have been one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given. Because one thing I'll say, about these songs, I think you can hear my passion in all of them. And, whether or not somebody thinks, wow, he's a great singer or not, is really not the point at all. Are you hearing the heart of the story? Are the words and the melody resonating with you and creating an opportunity for hope and healing in the listener? And I feel like these songs have done that. I've heard so many marvelous stories of how these songs have been used that if I had been worried about how my voice sounded, they just simply would never have taken place. So I'm grateful that Jeff made that suggestion to me and that I jumped off the cliff. I will say this, it really helps when you have an engineer and co-producer like Kent Hooper, because he will make you sound as good as you possibly can sound.
Absolutely true.
and he was very helpful because the first thing he said was, you got to get out of your head. You just got to get out of your head. So here's what we're going to do. It's like he took over. He said, you're going to go into the vocal booth and you're going to sing the song through 3 times. And then I'm going to kick you out. And I will listen to all 3 versions and I will, what we could call comp, which is take the best of each of the passes. And I will put together a completed vocal. And then you can come back and sit down and listen to it. And if there's a line or 2 you feel like you could do better, then we'll just get them again. He said, but we're not going to do the thing where you stand in there and sing the song 15 times. We're not doing that. You're not a studio singer. That's not where we're going. Just sing from your heart and trust me to grab the lines that convey the message the best. And between what Jeff said and what Kent said, that set me free as much as a person could be set free to just go in and do just that. Just sing from my heart and trust that what I was feeling and praying would be communicated would actually be communicated.
That's beautiful. And, Kent has that gift to just help you get out of your head space because that is a real thing. I mean, there's a reason we call him the wizard, Yes. He just has this way of drawing things out of you that you couldn't find on your own. And that's I don't think a lot of people, like probably a lot of our listeners, don't realize that. I mean, there are those that are just, it's old hat to walk into the studio. But I think with the type of music that we do, because it is so emotionally attached, often for the vocalist too, it is a little bit different because it engages your soul, if you will, not to sound cliche or whatever, music for the soul, but it engages the soul of the artist when you're singing these things, and to step out of your own nervousness in order to communicate the message is so important. And Kent is definitely a gift for Music for the Soul and all the work that he's done there. And I know working with you both has been just a tremendous healing place for me over the years. And I love that you got those inspirations from them, because too often I think there's that disconnect if you don't step beyond your fear. So that's awesome.
You just reminded me of a session we did with an amazingly talented vocal named Kim, a studio singer, and she was in the studio with us and was singing one of our songs, and had done like 14 takes because she's a pro and she could just do it over and over and over. And then she came in to listen to the playback after we'd comped all the best versions together. And when she was done listening, she said, "I'm not her yet." And she marched right back into the studio and blazed through the song in one take. And it's like, oh, she just needed to get angry, and realize, no, I'm not inside that person's skin yet. And that was really something to see. There's another studio singer we've worked with who uses the expression, "Oh, that sounds like I'm renting to own. Let me get that again."
Oh, that's great. That is great.
Yeah, we never want to sound like we're renting to own.
No. And I love how you said the listener is the artist. It's amazing to me the number of artists that have given over the years to these projects, and you really don't know who they are, but what they offer is the opportunity for the listener to be the artist and for it to become a part of their own story. And that's just a beautiful thing. So I just kind of wanted to talk about a few of the songs, but I would like to start with Broken to Bless, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I feel like Broken to Bless and Celebration Table, I mean, there's varied songs, but I want to talk about that song particular, Broken to Bless. We've talked a lot about how nothing is wasted in our lives, all the journey and all the sorrows and loss and all the grievous, even the ugly places in us, God uses them all. And could you just share about that?
Well, that phrase, "What would Jesus do?" was real popular, probably 20 years ago or so. And it, people wore wristbands that said WWJD. And what was curious about that to me was that often people would try to behave more perfectly. What would Jesus do? Well, that's not it. What Jesus would do is hang on a cross and be utterly broken to bless us. And so nobody really wants to do what Jesus would do, if you think about it, right?
Right.
Not literally anyway. So I think what I realized when I was writing that song is what Jesus would do. He would stretch out his arms wide and say, "Come to me, all ye who are weary, and I will give you rest." And so if we want to really try and do what Jesus would do, we need to be willing to share the broken and hurting places in our lives, be vulnerable with others, tell the truth, right? Not put up a false face of how we're rocking it like everybody does on Facebook or Instagram, but actually share real stuff and be willing to go to the real places with people. Because that honesty and authenticity is how we can be a gift to others. Because everybody thinks, "I'm the worst person who ever lived. What I did is the most sinful thing. I can't be forgiven." We all just beat ourselves up. And to be able to hear somebody else tell their story and go, "Oh, you too? Yeah. I'm not alone," I think is just about the hugest gift we can give to people. Because then people feel heard. And that wonderful quote of feeling heard is about the closest thing there is to feeling loved.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And that brokenness, is for a purpose. Yeah. I mean, if you allow it to be used by God and you offer that broken place to other people. So is that really what inspired you to write that song?
It's really interesting because sometimes you sit down and you go, okay, I'm going to write a song about this, and here's what it's going to say, and here's what it's going to mean.
Mhm.
And other times you walk into a room like I did on this day. It was the sanctuary at our church. The grand piano was sitting there by itself. And, that called to me, and I sat down and I started playing. And the next thing I knew, I was singing Broken to Bless. It was coming to me. And this was, I'd been maybe 15 years into the ministry by then. So I think my experiences of doing the ministry and seeing over and over and over again people's willingness to share their story to help others, I think it's one of those things where it's in there, right? Because sometimes we have experiences and memories and things that are just in there waiting for their moment. And I think Broken to Bless kind of was just waiting for its moment. And to me, it's become more or less our theme song in terms of the ideology, what we're sharing with people.
Oh, I absolutely agree. There's this beautiful place where God offers us the opportunity to allow Him to write the redemptive story over and over and over through every circumstance of our lives. And part of that is the brokenness and the death, but then the resurrection. So as I look at broken, I see death, and to bless is the resurrection, and it's being rewritten as we offer it out. And that song is just a beautiful, incredible picture, really, of, like you said, it's really kind of the theme song of everything that's out there. And just to piggyback on that, nothing is in vain. Let's talk about that one for a minute.
Yeah, that was a neat writing experience. I was sitting in church and we had a guest pastor, and he used that phrase, nothing is in vain. And before I knew it, I had written the entire lyric on the church program. It just lit a fire, and off I went. And that particular song, I was actually asked by a woman who lost her son when he was in his 30s if I would play that song at his funeral. And I thought, for that to speak to her, that his life and even his death was not in vain, what a privilege, what an honor, what a holy, sacred moment that was. And how terrified was I to sing it, at the funeral, right? I thought, this is important, so it's in those moments I always try to remember, audience of one, Steve, just give it to the Lord, let Him use it. So that song getting used in that way was just a tremendous blessing.
That's incredible. And when you, just the title alone, you have to say, when you're sitting in a hopeless place, there's nothing, literally nothing is in vain, because it all ends up being used somehow if we live open-handed with it. And the song offers that hope in the hopeless place, right? To be reminded that there is a greater plan, there is a greater purpose, that everything that is horrible and wrong and broken in life can be used for something good. It can bring beauty from ashes.
And you know what, Becky, one of the things that I was feeling when I was writing that song is we can sometimes feel so overwhelmed by all the bad news we hear in the world through media and what have you, that we can feel like we can't make a difference. What can I do? So the song literally says, what is one cup of water when millions are thirsty, right? Well, 1 cup of water is 1 cup of water for the person you're giving it to. And if we can be Jesus for people right where we are, it's like if I told 2 friends and they told 2 friends, the old Clairol commercial, I think. But that multiplicity that happens when each one of us decides to live it out, that's what the song is really about.
And so on and so on and so on. Right. And there's that scripture of you comfort with the same comfort.
Yes.
And so that's that full circle of you're offering water that you have had to taste and that you've drank from. And that's how it just continues. That's beautiful. So let's talk about, there's 2 other particular songs that I really would like to hit. Child of Mine, which is absolutely beautiful and precious to my heart.
Thank you. Well, Child of Mine, I'm in a men's prayer group. I've been in it for 30 years. And one of the wives of one of the guys in the group was feeling like a horrible mom. Now, this is a woman who has a child with special needs, special physical needs. And when I heard that she felt like a horrible mom, I thought, you know what? You're a hero because you get out of bed every day. I mean, I
Mhm.
literally had that thought. So I was really hurting for her. And I walk in the morning, and one morning as I was walking, I was just thinking so much about her, and these lyrics started coming. It actually started coming kind of as a prayer, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is for her. These are words
Mhm.
for her. And so by the time I got back to the house, I had all the words in my mind, and I sat down and picked up the guitar and wrote this song. And what it really is I'm writing and singing from the first person of the Lord. Now, I know some people might think that's kind of arrogant, but I know that our goal with Music for the Soul is always to try and speak from the heart of God,
Mhm.
and that God adores us. God created us, the divine resides in all of us, and
Mhm.
God wants us to know that He's crazy about us, right? That's basically all Child of Mine is. It's like, you don't have to try so hard. I loved you on the day I made you, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't have to believe the lies that you've heard
Mhm.
about you or about me. You
Right.
know, I sent my son to save you. You are a child of mine.
Mhm.
And I think one of the most humbling and beautiful compliments I ever received was from a therapist who told me that that song was the best representation of the gospel he had ever heard.
I agree. Mhm.
And that's a mouthful right there. And to that, all I can say is praise the Lord, because
Mhm.
like I said, I just kind of was, people might think this sounds like, does this really happen? But I really felt like I was just a conduit,
Mhm.
you know, that God was giving me something to speak to a friend who was hurting.
Well, that is what we are. We are vessels that his spirit breathes and speaks through. And I did not know. I know who you're talking about, and that makes that song even more dear to me now because they are precious people. And it's funny because you don't often know the internal struggle that others are having. Often, we can see somebody from afar and think, oh, well, they never feel like they don't measure up, or they never probably wrestle with whether or not God approves of them, or, lies about the Lord or lies about themselves. And
Well, man
and
looks on the outside and God looks at the heart, right? That's
Exactly. And to just realize, I think as we get older too, you start to realize that everybody's carrying something and
everybody's
everybody has
carrying.
a lie they have to overcome. And God's just like, yeah, sweetheart, I love you. I love
Mhm,
you the day I created you. That's precious.
I actually saw a Christian bookstore sign one time that said, "Be kind, everybody's having a hard life." And I think that that's actually something that I've always remembered from that day, is
Mhm.
that you have no idea what somebody's carrying in the moment. So
Mhm.
it's always a good idea to think about the heart, you know, no matter what somebody's projecting, and
Mhm.
to share kindness and love with everybody.
Yeah, typically it doesn't have anything to do with you. It has more to do with them. And maybe
Right.
they've carried a load for a really long time. Maybe their tolerance, because they've had to endure so much throughout life, they just are at a place
Mhm.
where they're like, I can't tolerate anymore. I'm already up to the brim, filled with trauma and pain and stuff,
Yes.
and struggling with who God is and where He is, and just gracing and mercying each other is
Mhm.
so important, because everybody's walking around with wounds. And I really want to hear about Wounded Angel and where that came from
Good
and the
segue, Becky.
impact. Hey, I've been practicing for a while now.
Well, Wounded Angel was another time when I had the opportunity to write a song as a gift to a brother, but it wound up turning into a gift to me, which that
Mm.
happens a lot. I had a dear friend whose daughter was struggling with addiction, and he actually was in my office, and he sat down at the piano and just sort of absent-mindedly touched the keys and went da 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 da. And I said, move over, literally. And I sat down and picked up on that little motif he'd played on the piano, and the melody started to come out.
Oh my
The,
goodness, I didn't know that.
yeah, and the words,
Ah.
you know, to bless his daughter came out. And again, that
Mm.
from that God perspective, you know, wounded angel, you are still my child. And at the same time, my own daughter was struggling with drug abuse. And
Mm.
so as I wrote the song, and now whenever I do the song live, I'm just a mess. but because both of these young ladies are living in recovery now. God has blessed them both to move forward with their lives. So that was a deeply, deeply felt writing experience, and so great to not only see those women healed, but to know that song has gone out and been part of the healing for others as well.
Incredible. We have a friend that I know that this song has meant. She says it saved her life, and that is Renee is 14.
Yeah.
And it's also very dear to my heart. But I wondered if you could share with us about that song. It's had a great impact in a lot of different places that I'm aware of, but I want you to talk about that one. It's special.
Well, Renee, I was actually reading the Los Angeles Times, and there was a story in it about a young girl. Her name was Renee, and she was 14, and she had run away from an abusive home. And she lived in Kansas, and she ran away to Southern California. And within a month, she was being sexually trafficked on the streets of Hollywood. And so as a songwriter, I had to process that. And I went to the piano and wrote her story. And I will say, that sounds like a really, obviously it's a really dark story, and the song doesn't resolve. It just poses a question. But if you asked me, if you said, Steve, you can only play one song for the world, which one would it be? It'd probably be Renee's 14. It came from a really pure place. I feel like melodically, rhythmically, lyrically, everything about it just feels right to me. And I still to this day love playing it. It's been several years. And you did mention the person who said the song saved her life. And Tony Wood, one of my dear friends and co-writers, will say when he hears a story about what a song has done, he'll say, we trust that that's happening, but we don't always get to see it, because we write these songs, right? And sometimes in writers' rooms that don't even have windows, right? We're like, scientists, right? And we're creating something in the lab, and the songs get out there, and often you don't hear anything about a song. And so when God graciously pulls back the curtain and says, hey, here you go, take a look at this, that's so special. And what I like to think is each song we write has an assignment, or maybe more than one assignment, even if that assignment is only to serve the one who wrote it, the experience of writing it. Once you let it out into the world, you have no idea where it's going to go or what it's going to do. But I think each song has been created for a moment in time. And of course, with God, time is eternity. So we don't know whether that song is going to serve today, tomorrow, next year, 10 years from now, or like a song with Amazing Grace, 200 years after you're dead, right?
Yeah, right.
God will use the song when it pleases God to do so. And it's always a privilege whenever anybody records a song that you've written. It's always a privilege. And then we just trust that they have the songs have a life all their own. They're going to go out and do what they're going to do. So
yes,
that was obviously beyond gratifying to hear what that song had meant to the woman that you're referring to.
Yeah, I love that visual of, you're creating this song, but there's a point where you kind of set it free like a dove. And you just are open-handed with it. And, I've been blessed to watch with you the things that God does when we do that, and ways that we never dreamed that a song would be used or heard in a certain way or by a certain group or a certain audience. It's just incredible.
It's the coolest thing.
And I think that's what we do with our dreams when we release our dreams for things, and we just remain open-handed. God does, like scripture says, immeasurably more than we could ever ask, hope, think, imagine. Yes. He is not a God that can be boxed when it comes to anything. And we've certainly seen that at Music for the Soul and all the things. There's another song that I hold dear, and that is The Apology, for many reasons in my own story. But I think there are many women that hold this one in particular close to our hearts. And first of all, thank you for writing it. And wondered if you could just talk about some of the stories and experiences around writing that, and what did it come out of? Where was it written from?
Well, the Somebody's Daughter project, when it first came out, got a lot of attention. And I felt like we needed to do everything we could to raise that idea up for people in this culture of objectification, that people would stop and think, wait a minute, when I'm looking at pornography, when I'm behaving, what does Ephesians 5:3 say? Among you, there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality. Well, our culture passed hint about 500 miles back.
Mm-hmm.
And just wanted to get people to just to own that idea and have it planted in their minds so they wouldn't forget. So we wound up doing a billboard campaign called She's Somebody's Daughter. We put that message above the Hollywood Hustler in Nashville. We put it on several billboards in Oklahoma City, which is kind of the crossroads of the interstate in America. And we were told that literally millions of people saw it. And as part of that whole process, I worked with a man named Michael Cusick, and Michael had written a prayer to the women of the world apologizing for his own behavior. So he wrote this open letter, open prayer to the women of the world. And when I read it, I thought, oh my gosh, every man in the world needs to hear this. And forgive me, guys, but I've been told men don't read. Like, if you want to get through to guys, do a pamphlet, not a book. And so I thought, we've got to make this into a song to get this message in front of more people. And I was actually in Oklahoma City for a She's Somebody's Daughter event. I was staying at a friend's house and there was nobody home. And I looked over and there was a guitar leaning in the corner. And I thought, now. And I went over and I basically paraphrased Michael's prayer. I mean, almost no new lyrics at all. And then I didn't know how to end it. And so I went into another room where there was a keyboard and I sat down. I thought, well, maybe the ending is here at the keyboard. I do that sometimes. Like, I'll be writing a lyric, and if I'm sitting in a chair, I'll think, well, maybe the lyric is on the floor, or maybe it's in the next room. You know, sometimes you got to move.
I'm going to try the couch now.
Yeah, absolutely. If I only could tell you how many times the final lyric line has come to me in the bathroom. That may be too much information, but it's true. It's true.
Well, anyway, you might be on a roll there.
Oh, I see what you did there. Okay. So anyway, I was sitting at the piano and I was playing through the song, and I got to the end of it, and the line, "May I kneel and wash your feet," fell out. And it felt so right. Instead of using and objectifying, "May I serve you?"
Yeah.
And it felt so right. I put it there 3 times just to make sure everybody got the message. But anyway, that song, in addition to the first time I played it live was in Oklahoma City a few days later, and a woman ran up to me afterwards and grabbed both my hands with tears streaming down her face and said, "I've been waiting my whole life to hear a man say that to me."
Yeah.
So of course that was very meaningful. And later on, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation shared it through their network and had literally hundreds upon hundreds of responses. So that's a song that I still pray will continue to have renewed life, because unfortunately this issue is not, that this place in our country is not healed yet.
No. And, that piggybacking off of Renee's 14, I mean, it's kind of a hot topic recently, the trafficking and, our youth just being so naive in the fact that, they can easily be sucked into a much worse situation than what they find themselves in, even if they're not careful, running away and seeking a place of safety and ending up in a more dangerous place. But then just the objectification that we see everywhere in our society. And sadly, I'm seeing women not helping that situation either, as they have not seen their own value and their own worth, and the reason that they can hold their heads high and they don't need to use their sexual prowess or influence to gain respect or be captivating or noticed. That there's so much more than that. And I love both of those songs very much. Is there any other songs that you would like to touch on during, we're getting close to time here, and I just want to make sure that if there's any, I mean, I love No Power Over Me. I mean, I want you to pick one.
Well, maybe we can do this again sometime, but because I've enjoyed it and I appreciate the opportunity to share. I think I would probably talk about I've Got This, which is on the Celebration Table project.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only song in however many years I've been writing songs, in thousands of songs. It's the only song where I've ever awakened with the melody and the lyric already combined in my head. So it was like, get to the piano because you know you'll forget this before you have your coffee.
Oh, right. Yes, that's a thing. It's a thing.
It is a thing. So the song is simply God saying, hey, you can go to sleep. I've got this. You can rest.
Mm.
I played it at a sexual abuse survivor conference. It was the first time I ever played it. And I was playing it to close the first night of the conference. And when I finished it, the pastor who was leading that segment of the evening turned to the audience and said, how many of you have been struggling with sleeplessness? And you know how many hands went up? Too many to count. Easily 2/3 of the room. And he turned to me and said, Steve, would you play that again? It's an interesting recording because it's a duet where I sing both parts. And of course that's crazy. So Kent did a little vocal effect in the chorus. So where God is speaking the blessing that I've got this, it's different than when I, as the sleepless one, I'm saying, I can't fall asleep. But just to see in that one room how many people that impacted, I know that is something that touches a lot of people. We know from the recent conference we went to that 75% of the therapists said anxiety is the number one issue affecting people in our country right now. I'm sure it's across the world as well after the pandemic. So I think that's an important song for that reason. You just lay it down, just get your rest. And interestingly enough, that song is by far the most streamed song at our website, by far.
Yeah, because I think people just do need to hear, it's okay. I've got this. You can just come to me, all who are weary, and I'll give you rest. And he does.
I had a man in his 80s once say this to me. This kind of underscores this whole theme. He said, Steve, at the end of the day, I get down on my knees next to my bed and I say, Lord, I've done everything I can. You take it from here. And then I sleep like a baby.
That's great. I think I might take that one. I've done everything I can. It's all yours.
Amen.
And sometimes when there's people that you're having issues with, you just say, Lord, they're your kids. I can't deal with them. They're your kids. And you just lay it down, because for women, especially, relational anxiety is a big thing. It's a big thing. And all you can do is live his light and do what the next right thing is. And then you got to lay it down.
As my wife says, do the work and let the big guy take care of the results.
Oh, and there it is again, another reason why I love that woman so much. She just has a way with putting things. Well, okay, just to reiterate, where can our listeners find these awesome projects, their titles? Can you give the information?
Well, of course, at our website, musicforthesoul.org, everything streams, all the lyrics are there. The songs we've referenced today, most of them come from the Broken to Bless project. The last one I talked about comes from the Celebration Table project. So you can search those by album title or by song title. And of course, they're up on the streaming services as well. So whatever works for you to hear them and listen to them, invite you to do that.
Well, thank you so much for pulling back the curtain a little bit on some songwriting and places that these things have originated from, and sharing your heart today with our listeners so they can get to know you and Music for the Soul a little better.
Thank you, Becky.
And you are a blessing. Thank you for offering your gifts and talents for so many years to help people in their places of brokenness so that they can become a blessing and also offer celebration to the world, because there is hope and there is healing. If you enjoyed the discussion today, please share it with a friend and give us a positive review on iTunes.
And please visit our website, musicforthesoul.org, where you can stream or download every song in our catalog, including all the songs we've talked about today. Read our lyrics, our healing music guide, our blog posts, and much more. Thank you so much for listening. God bless. You can't put a saddle on a wild stallion. He has to be broken before you can ride. You can't hurry wisdom or
for understanding. They come with heartaches and take their sweet time. I could drown in my sorrows when the tears come in waves, or use them to help someone else find their way. Because I've been broken, how deeply I can bless. Compassion's been forged in the fires of duress, as Jesus did for me. How could I do any less? I've been broken, broken, broken to bless. We don't learn humility from our successes. The failures we go through teach us the most. I could put on a brave face, act like I'm in control, or point to the one who I trust with my soul. Because I've been broken, how deeply I can bless. Compassion's been forged in the fires of duress, as Jesus did for me. How could I do any less? I've been broken, broken, broken to bless. The prideful heart demands first place. The humble heart leaves room for grace. Because I've been broken, how deeply I can bless. Compassion's been forged in the fires of duress, as Jesus did for me. How could I do any less? I've been broken, broken, broken to bless.